Hi again, everyone. Gary Digital Williams here on Boxing Along the Beltway with our news and notes for this week. And these notes this week is news. Really does not include much going on. In fact, nothing really going on inside the Beltway region. Of course, we do have a couple of amateur cards coming up. One we've talked about, one we have to talk about this week. But we have a huge schedule of Beltway boxers traveling around the country to be in boxing matches. And we had something that came up. A situation that came up this afternoon as we record this that announced a couple more boxing cards coming up for local boxers. So we're going to talk about that as well, and then I'm going to give a couple of plugs to a couple of friends of mine who have got some projects. Actually, both already done with the projects. I mean, they're in the midst of the projects as we speak. So we'll talk about that a little bit through our podcast as well. Beltway Boxing News and Notes brought to you as always by Real-Time Pain Relief, from boxers to ballerinas. For shoulder pain, the muscle strain, and everything in between, Boxing Along the Beltway recommends Real-Time Pain Relief, the natural, plant-based, safe, fast, and effective ointment. Once again, you go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of Real-Time Pain Relief, you get a free $10 tube of Real-Time Pain Relief, and indeed it works, no question about that. Rub it on, the pain is gone in real time. Well, this week we have a couple of amateur cards coming up on Friday, January 26th. There's the card we talked about last week at Michael's 8th Avenue in Glen Burnie, Maryland. We also have a card on Saturday, January 27th. That's at the historic Howard Theater in Northwest Washington, D.C., 7th and T Street Northwest. And that's the PVA Winter Gloves, brought to you by the Potomac Valley Association of USA Boxing. No word's going to be on the card, but it should be a good event. The PVA Junior Olympic Committee are involved with that. Of course, coming up later on, the Silver Gloves will be coming up shortly, February 1st through the 3rd. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But so if you want some good amateur cards coming up, you got Friday night at Michael's 8th Avenue in Glen Burnie, Maryland, and Saturday at the Howard Theater. So that's the 26th and the 27th. But as far as pro shows are concerned, folks, it looks pretty grim right now because really there's nothing going on in the Beltway region. There's really no cards, and right now for the foreseeable future, there are no cards. There's nothing on the horizon, nothing scheduled. No one seems to have anything going on. So we're going to be looking at some of our bigger boxers fighting on national television, and some of our other local boxers who are competing around the country. That's what we're talking about today. So let's look at our Beltway schedule coming up. Starting on Friday, January 26th, we have a few boxes going in a couple boxes going on Friday, January 26th in Melrose, Massachusetts at Memorial Hall. Suitland, Maryland super welterweight Leonard Mr. Composure Dozier. He'll be in an 8-round scheduled bout against undefeated Carlos Gongora. He's out of Brooklyn, New York, by way of Esmeraldas, Ecuador. Once again, they'll be at the Memorial Hall located in Melrose, Massachusetts. Leonard Dozier is 10-18-2 with 5 KOs. He's lost 6 in a row, including a 6-round unanimous decision loss to Daryl Cunningham on June 23rd. That was in Detroit, Michigan. Meanwhile, Gongora is 10-0 with 8 KOs, coming off an 8-round unanimous decision over Henry Beckford. That was on September 30th in Boston, Massachusetts. So Leonard Dozier looking to get a win in that situation. Also on the 26th, we have Washington, D.C. super featherweight Joshua Dynamite Davis. He's looking to bounce back from his loss back on October 19th when he lost to Ray Lampkin. He'll be in an 8-round contest against undefeated Stephen Ortiz of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That'll be at the Sugar House Casino in Philadelphia. Davis is 11-2, 5 KOs, and again, he lost that 6-round unanimous decision. That was on national television against Ray Lampkin on October 19th in Atlanta, Georgia. Ortiz, we said 7-0, 2 KOs. He won a 6-round unanimous decision to Tyrone, that is his name, Tyrone Jones, on June 24th at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. So, Stephen Ortiz has fought most of his career at the 2300. He now goes over to the Sugar House Casino, and he'll take on Joshua Davis, who could use a win in this situation. No question about that. Meanwhile, on Saturday, January 27th, there'll be 2 Beltway boxers, and they'll be on a card at the Orlando Live Event Center. That's in Orlando, Florida. Seat Pleasant, Maryland featherweight James Too Slick Early. He'll take on Alice Flash Roman of Kissimmee, Florida, in a bout scheduled for 4 rounds. Now, early he won his first 2 bouts, and now he's riding a 2-bout losing streak. That includes a 4-round unanimous decision loss to Juan Sanchez on November 21st at the Sands Bethlehem Event Center in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Roman is 4-2. He'll look to bounce back from a 4th-round TKO defeat to Odier Landon on February 26th of last year in Palm Bay, Florida. So James Early looking to get back on the winning track here, as is Columbia, Maryland super middleweight Ashton Dagoon Sykes. He'll be in a 4-round contest against the debuting Arman Reisbeck of Kissimmee, Florida, by way of Kazakhstan. Sykes is 1-1. He lost a 4-round majority decision his last outing to Angel Martinez on December 8th in Tampa, Florida. So that's the rest of January's schedule. Now, as we move into February, we've already talked about a couple of bouts on the schedule. We talked about Scott Cujo-Sigmund taking on multi-time world champion and future Hall of Famer Roy Jones Jr. on Thursday night, February 8th. That'll be at the Pensacola Civic Center in Pensacola, Florida. We talked about that last podcast, and we can now update a little bit because that bout will be for the German version of the World Boxing Union Cruiserweight Championship. Now, that's a similar belt to what Jerome Quigley won late last year. He won the German version of the WBU welterweight title a few months ago. So Scott Cujo-Sigmund looking to beat Roy Jones Jr. This is Roy Jones' swan song in Pensacola. So we'll see what happens there. So that's once again Thursday night, February the 8th in Pensacola, Florida. Scott Sigmund taking on Roy Jones Jr. We've also talked about the bout that'll be on Saturday, February the 10th at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's former world champion, super lightweight champion DeMarcus Chop Corley. He'll take on Hammerin' Hank Lundy on that card. February 10th. They've done some good things, good promotion for that card. And my buddy George Hansen Jr. had their version of Face to Face, where you can see it online, where they have face to face between Corley and Lundy, and very similar to the way they do it on HBO. So you get a chance, check that out. That was kind of fun to watch the two of them verbally go at it there. Now, also on that card, we have one Beltway boxer who's on that card, and a guy who originally from D.C., but he now fights somewhere else. Now, the Beltway boxer, of course, is Baltimore, Maryland heavyweight Hasim Gold-Blooded Rockman Jr. He's 3-0, all 3 of his bouts by KO, all 3 of his bouts by KO in the first round. He has an opponent to be determined on that card. But another boxer on that card is a cruiserweight by the name of Joe Jones III, and he is out of D.C. originally. And he fought as an amateur throughout his time in Washington, fought in the regional and local Golden Gloves. But now he fights out of Jersey City, New Jersey. He's now 9-0 with 7 KOs. He has stopped 4 of his last 5 opponents. He's also looking for an opponent on this card as well. So that's Saturday, February 10th at the 2300 Arena. Chop Corley taking on Hank Lundy, Hasim Goldblood, Rockman Jr., and Joe Jones III, all looking for opponents there. Now, in another bout on February the 10th, this will be at the Hartman Arena in Park City, Kansas. A guy who has not fought in the area or anywhere else since July of 2012 returns to action. And that is the D.C. heavyweight by the name of Maurice the Freight Train Byron. Now, Maurice Byron is originally from Philadelphia, but has lived in Washington for quite some time now, fought out of D.C., and he is turning to the ring for the first time since he was stopped in the second round by Magomed Abdusalamov. He is the boxer who later was unfortunately hurt severely in a bout a few bouts after the Byron bout. Abdusalamov knocked out Byron in the second round in Las Vegas, Nevada. Byram is 13-2-1, 9 KOs. We had him listed at one point, I believe, as one of the prospects of the year. I want to say along with Gary Russell Jr. I want to say that. I think they were co-belly boxing prospects of the year back in 2010, I believe it was. And so Byram returns to the ring. He'll take on Richard Silverback Carmack out of Kansas City, Missouri. And once again, the bout scheduled for 6 rounds. Carmack is 15-12-1, 6 KOs. He's winless in his last 6 contests, including a second-round knockout against Scott Alexander on September 23rd. That was at the Hartman Arena. Now, the interesting thing about Carmack is that you look at where he comes in. And again, he's a heavyweight, so I guess weight don't really matter. I mean, you don't have to cut weight or anything like that as a heavyweight. And Carmack, according to his last few bouts, hadn't even thought about cutting weight. He's been well over 300 pounds since his boxing in 2011. Every bout he's been in, he's been above the 300-pound mark. So that should be interesting when he takes on Maurice Baum, who's usually in good shape. And we'll see what happens in that bout coming up. That's Saturday, February the 10th at the Hartman Arena in Park City, Kansas. Then on Tuesday night, February 13th, there'll be 3 Beltway boxes on a card at the Sands Bethlehem Event Center in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That'll be a King's Promotions card. And one of the key bouts on that card will be Forestville, Maryland, super lightweight and King's Promotions signee, Michael the Professor Fox. He'll take on Ricardo Garcia of the Dominican Republic in the bout. In the bout scheduled for 8 rounds. Now, Fox is 15-0, 4 KOs, and he won the biggest bout in his young career when he won a 10-round unanimous decision over Manuel Alejandro Reyes, and that was on November 21st at the Sands Bethlehem Event Center. And with that win, Fox captured the vacant UBF All-America's welterweight title. Garcia, however, is 14-1 with 9 KOs. He fought on November 21st card, same card. He suffered his first pro defeat on that card, losing an 8-round majority decision to Victor Vasquez. So that should be an interesting bout for Michael Fox. Again, Garcia is looking to get back on the winning track real quickly. And they're even, very close in records, very close. Actually, Garcia has more knockouts than Fox. So we shall see. So that's one of the key bouts on that card. But there are 2 other Beltway boxers that'll be on that show. Owings Mills, Maryland heavyweight Kobe Madison returns to action. He'll be in a 6-round contest against Dante Selby of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, Madison comes off a 2nd-round TKO over Randy Easton. That was on December 1st in Philadelphia, and I believe it was at the Sugar House Casino. Selby is 2-3-1. He's lost 3 straight over a 4-year period, and he lost to Randy Easton by a first-round knockout back in December of 2013. So he's lost bouts in 2013, 2014, then took a couple years off, and then fought in 2017. So Kobe Madison will be on that card as well. And also Suitland, Maryland featherweight Malik Little League Lofton. He'll be in a 4-round bout against Martino Jules of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Now, Lofton only fought once in 2017, but boy, it was an impressive bout. He stopped Jamor Edwards in the 4th round on June 3rd at Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, Maryland. So he had one of the most impressive single bouts of the year. Lofton looked very good in that bout. So we'll see what happens when he takes on Jules. Jules is 2-0. He's coming off a 4-round unanimous decision, majority decision win. 4-round majority decision at Sands Bethlehem Event Center against W.C. Johnson on November 21st. So that should be an interesting bout there. So Michael Fox, Kobe Madison, Malik Lofton, all on that card coming up on Tuesday night, February the 13th. Then on Saturday, February the 17th, the return of Laurel, Maryland light heavyweight Thomas Top Dog Williams Jr. He'll take on Humberto Velasco Tito Torres of Aguas Calientes, Mexico. That'll be at the Don Haskins Convention Center in El Paso, Texas. I believe that's on the campus of the University of Texas, El Paso. Of course, Don Haskins was the longtime and legendary men's basketball coach at UTEP. Williams is 20-3 with 14 KOs. He returns almost 1 year to the day where he lost his last bout, his 6-round TKO to Marcus Brown. That was on February 18th at Cincinnati, Ohio. And this will also be the first bout Williams has had since the passing of his stepfather, Jerry Peterson, in the latter part of 2017. Torres is 18-1 with 12 KOs, has a 10-bout unbeaten streak, and he comes off a 7th-round TKO over Josue Abando. That was on August 31st in Aguas Calientes. This will be the first bout for Torres in the United States. He's fought pretty much exclusively in Mexico. So best wishes to Thomas Top Dog Williams Jr. as he returns in this bout. The card is on Fox, but I don't think his bout will make that telecast. Then 1 week later, on Saturday, January 24th, Baltimore, Maryland lightweight Jamal Dyer has his first bout of 2018. He'll take on Vanderlei Miranda of Marseille, Bouches d'Aron, France, by way of Capo Verde, Florida, in a bout scheduled for 4 rounds at the Showboat Hotel in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I didn't know the Showboat Hotel was still around. I thought they got demolished at some point. But apparently he's still here. Now, Dyer capped off a great first year. He was a 2017 Beltway Boxing co-rookie of the year, along with Antoine Russell. He had a great year. He was 4-0, 2 KOs. He had a 4-round unanimous decision over Roger Blankenship on October 7th in Erie, Pennsylvania. Miranda hopes to have his fortunes changed. He makes his first voyage to the United States after losing all 3 of his pro bouts in France. He's 0-3. So that's the schedule for late January and February. Of course, we have some bouts coming up in March. Mike, yes, indeed, Reed, scheduled to compete on March the 10th, I believe his date is. And then earlier today, as a matter of fact, as we record this, Showtime and Premier Boxing Champions unveiled, I guess, the first half of their 2018 schedule. And by the way, the schedule is awesome. I will tell you that. Of course, it started with the Errol Spence Lamont Peterson fight, and I'll talk about that bout in just a little bit. But among the boxers, they trotted out a whole bunch of really just great boxers as they introduced the lineup for their schedule for 2018. And of course, among that schedule, on that schedule, are 2 Beltway boxers, and it reminded me so much of seeing William Joppy and Keith Holmes as part of the Middleweight Championship Series and seeing them up on that stage at Crampton Auditorium in D.C. at Howard University, talking about that big event. This is about as close as it came to that, where on that big stage they had then, I didn't catch where this Showtime special was emanated from, not exactly sure where it came from, but to see Jared Hurd and Gervonta Davis take their rightful place among the best and brightest of this business was a thrill. It really was. It was incredible. And they announced the 2 dates for both of them now. April 7th is a done deal now. Jared Hurd's in a unification bout. He'll put his IBF super welterweight title on the line, junior middleweight title on the line against WBA champion Erislandy Lara, April 7th. No word on where that bout is going to be. It would be great if that bout, I think, in all honesty, the bout is too big for MGM. I'm hoping that Verizon Center, make that Capital One Arena, Capital One Arena makes a bid for that, because that'd be a huge bout. I know it's right in the middle of Wizards and Caps season, but they can find a way to get that involved there. Oh, that'd be tremendous. That'd be tremendous for this area, and I think it would do very well in this area. No question about that. But April 7th, once again, Jared Hurd puts his IBF title on the line against WBA champion Erislandy Lara. Then on April 21st, the return of Gervonta Tank Davis. And no word on his opponent yet. We don't know whether that's going to be a title bout. We don't even know what weight class it's going to be in. It could be at super featherweight. It could be at lightweight. We don't know. So that's April 21st. And again, no word on where that event is going to be as well. But it has been remarkable to see those guys among the best in the business, and it was really thrilling. And I think that for Jared Hurd especially, he gets by Lara. He may be very close to being the first boxer out of the Beltway to hit the pound-for-pound list since Mark Too Sharp Johnson. That's how big that bout could eventually be for Swift Jared Hurd. So we shall see. That's going to be great. And then again, April 21st is Gervonta Davis. And again, as we said, the schedule for Showtime really started this past weekend, this past Saturday, when Errol Spence defeated Lamont Peterson. And I said some things on Facebook that I will stand by, no question about that, because there's not any controversy surrounding this bout. Excuse me. I think most people are in agreement with this. Lamont Peterson put on a heck of a show. He really did. He put on a valiant effort against Errol Spence. Errol Spence, as Lamont said, was the better man. And I really think Errol Spence is among the brightest in the entire sport. I have the utmost respect for him. I enjoy watching him compete. I loved it when he beat Kell Brook. Nothing against Kell Brook. I just loved the way Errol Spence won that fight. He was dominant in that fight, and he was, quite frankly, dominant in the bout against Lamont Peterson. But what I like about Errol Spence is that he's classy. He's classy in victory. And you gotta like that. And you gotta respect that. And I do respect that a lot. I respect Lamont Peterson. And, you know, my feelings toward Lamont Peterson, I've said it before, but Lamont Peterson was the very first Beltway boxer I had the honor of covering from the amateurs all the way to the championship. And, you know, he won a National Golden Gloves. And I remember that distinctly. And, of course, I saw him. He and his brother, Anthony, fought on the Platinum Gloves show when they were really young kids back then. And they were very talented then. And, of course, that talent is shown throughout. If I were to revamp my list of the top Beltway boxers of the last, say, 30 years, I may still do that one day. Lamont Peterson would definitely be on the list. I don't know where yet, but he would definitely be on the list because he has represented this city in D.C. proper. He's represented the Beltway region with the utmost of class, the utmost of skill, and he is truly one of the best boxers to ever come out of this area. He, along with William Joppy, Simon Brown, and of course Sugar Ray Leonard and Mark Johnson, are the only boxers to have won 3 world titles. 3 or more world titles, I should say, because Sugar Ray Leonard, of course, has won 6. But he did it with such class. He did it with such ability to be humble. And it has been a joy. It has been an honor to cover him throughout this time period. And as far as Barry Hunter is concerned, it was the best thing he could have done. He could have, I mean, I don't know, who knows whether or not he may have saved his life. I don't know. We'll never know that, I guess. But the fact that he looked at Lamont Peterson as his son, which he is in essence, Lamont Peterson, Anthony Peterson's father, you know, adopting them and being a part of their lives since the age of 10, get them off the streets. Barry Hunter just did the right thing. He really did. He did the right thing. And, you know, anybody who says, and I said it on Facebook, anybody who believes Lamont Peterson quit, just really should unfriend me on Facebook or anything else, because that's the dumbest thing you could say. And I have no time for that argument. Lamont Peterson would have kept on if he could make the decision on his own. There's no question he would have kept on. But it was the right thing to do. And I'm glad Barry Hunter made that move. No question about that. I think Lamont Peterson, I don't expect Lamont Peterson to fight anymore. In all honesty, I'd be a little surprised, upset to maybe some farewell bout down the road, which would be fine. But his legacy in the Beltway is secure. You know, I don't know if he's a International Boxing Hall of Famer. That's a question for debate. I think he falls maybe just short of that. It's obviously going to be a Beltway boxing, a DC Boxing Hall of Fame. There's no question about that. That's not even a question. But his legacy in boxing is secure. He has nothing to be ashamed of. His only losses have come to truly some of the best boxers in the world. He's lost to Tim Bradley, Lucas Matisse. He lost a questionable bout to Danny Garcia, and of course the loss to Errol Spence. So he hasn't lost to any nunnies, as my brother-in-law likes to say. He lost to quality people. He himself is a quality person, and I wish him well. I know he'll be successful whenever he does, because he's that type of person. He's a great person, so I appreciate that. Now, as far as the undercard, good win for Anthony Peterson. People have told me he looked absolutely dominant in his bout, and maybe it's his turn now. Maybe he can get back on the stick, fight more on a more regular basis, and get a championship for himself. That'd be wonderful. We could see that. And Keyshawn Williams on the card. He fought in a draw. Now, he took a little chance in this bout. You know, he fought a guy who was 1-0 as well. And he fought to a split decision draw. So nothing lost by that. So he's now 1-0-1, 1 KO. So we'll see what happens there. But again, a kind of a bittersweet night. But again, two classy fighters go at it, and that's what it really makes it great for the sport. No question about that. Now, don't forget, later on in February, because as we said, the Silver Gloves come up in Independence, Missouri. That's on February 1st to the 3rd. And then later on in February, we have the Washington Golden Gloves. And again, we find out who is next in the Beltway. Now, before we go, I got a couple of plugs I want to give out to a couple of friends of mine who are doing some really good things. No question about that. Now, for the last couple of years, DC Boxing Hall of Famer Tom Lavero has had a podcast called Cigars and Curveballs. And I kind of mentioned it when it first started, but I haven't really mentioned it much. And although he has had some boxing people on his podcast over the one, this most recent episode is one I really think you all want to hear. It's an outstanding conversation with a guy who is probably the busiest and longest tenured boxing broadcaster, maybe in boxing history. He's been calling bouts for almost 50 years. He's called some of the best in the history of this business, including the Thrill in Manila, including the bout in Zaire. Actually came before the Thrill in Manila, but bout in Zaire between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. He called the Thrill in Manila between Ali and Joe Frazier, third time around for them. He called Mike Tyson losing one of the biggest upsets in sports history against Buster Douglas in Tokyo, Japan. And he also called the Mike Tyson Evander Holyfield bout. Those are just some of the 10,000 bouts, more than 10,000 bouts that Colonel Bob Sheridan has called. And Colonel Bob Sheridan is a guest on the most recent episode edition of Cigars and Curveballs with Tom Lavero. It's a great event. I just give you one aspect of the conversation that the two of them have. A lot of people don't know this, and I just found out listening to the podcast. I listened to it earlier today, as a matter of fact. The day before the second bout between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson, Colonel Bob Sheridan had a heart attack. Colonel Bob Sheridan had a heart attack. One of 7 he's had, by the way. And he still, the very next day, with cardiologists in tow, called Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson 2, which was, of course, the bite fight, as we know by now, known as the bite fight, where Tyson bit off a little bit of Holyfield's ear. Just a tremendous podcast, great stories told. And so if you want to get to listen to that, listen to Cigars and Curveballs with Tom Lavero. You can get it on iTunes. I found it on my Spreaker listing there, so you can listen to a lot of his podcasts that he's done. So that's Tom Lavero, Cigars and Curveballs. Now, another one is a little closer to me, although Tom Lavero is a great friend, don't get me wrong, but this guy that I want to talk about a little bit, he and I have rode the roads together through the Beltway for many years now. We don't do it as much now because of his real-time job. He's actually a federal air marshal. And I didn't know this about him, and this is what makes it so interesting, and I want to plug it a little bit. As you know, I've been writing for FightNews.com since 1999, so almost 20 years now. And I've had many writing partners over the years, and one of the longest I've had is a guy by the name of Julian Burgow. Now, Burgow is a local guy. He's out of Frederick, Maryland. And again, he's an air marshal by trade. And I think he served time in the military as well. But he and I have been writing for Fight News together for about, I'd say, a little over 10 years now, actually. There was actually 3 of us at one time. It was a guy named Priceless Steve Price, who was no longer with Fight News. But Julie and I have been writing and covering bouts together for quite some time. But what I didn't know about Julian Burgow is that he is also a poet. I did not know this. And he has put out a brand new book in a very interesting title. It's called Sleep Turns to Monster. And it's a poetic journey through life, love, and loneliness. So you want to know more about that, you have to buy the book. It's on Amazon and some other places as well. But he's got a book out. It's called Sleep Turns to Monster, Poetic Journey Through Life, Love, and Loneliness by Julian Bergauer. And I just want you to go ahead and get that, because I'm actually trying to look forward to getting it myself, because again, I'm curious to know what this is all about, because from what I've been told, it kind of opens, as a lot of poets do, opens up windows of their own life for you all to read and hear about. So maybe Julian's doing that as well with this book. But we'll see what happens. Once again, the book is called Sleep Turns to Monster, A Poetic Journey Through Life, Love, and Loneliness by Julian Bergauer. You can get it on Amazon.com and other places as well. And I wish Julian well with that as well. And I'm still waiting for the time and the opportunity to put out my book about boxing along the Beltway, and I'm looking forward to one day doing that. I've got information, I've got stories. I just need to put it all together. So we'll see what happens. If you have any ideas on how to do that, please let me know. You can email me at beltwayboxing@hotmail.com. You can get me on Twitter at digital25. So hopefully you'll do that as well. I'm on Facebook as well. So that'll do it for another edition of Beltway Boxing News and Notes. Once again, Beltway Boxing News and Notes brought to you by Real Time Pain Relief. Rub it on, the pain is gone in real time. Don't forget to go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of real-time pain relief, get a free $10 tube of real-time pain relief. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Gary Digital Williams, reminding you as always, keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the boxing along the Beltway. Thanks for listening. Take care.